Hey everybody, and welcome to a video where I'm going to be discussing the fan campaign, the custom campaign, Dark Matter, in detail, giving my thoughts on it, while also kind of like, this is like a pseudo review. It's not really like my place to review a fan-made campaign, because the thing is, a fan-made campaign, they're so tricky. Making your own campaign is a huge thing to do. So I'm not going to be here and being like, this isn't less of like something that this part's bad, this part's like good. It's just going to be my general thoughts on it and why I would recommend it to you and why it might work for you if you're going to play it. So we're going to start with a spoiler-free section. Sorry about that. We're going to start with a spoiler-free section of this review, where I'm going to discuss the campaign and kind of like the flavor of it and give my general thoughts on it. Then we're going to go a detailed breakdown looking at scenario by scenario, giving even more thoughts on it for people who want a deeper dive before they come and play it. So, the Dark Matter campaign is a custom campaign made by Axolotl, and it takes place in space. As you can see, the machine in yellow, fragment of Carcosa. Haster is a big thing throughout all this, and I actually just got scared. I said the word Haster, and I'm like, am I allowed to say the word Haster? And yes, you can say it here, it's okay. And it has a story where you are like seeking, you're like, it fits that thing that a lot of Arkham Horror the card game has, where the storyline takes place after the big event, which is a cool thing I really like in Arkham Horror the card game, and it works really here as well. A bunch of cultists have done something, their ritual is beginning to progress, and you were part of that ritual, and now you're trying to figure out what you guys can do to stop it. So you wake up, and actually, it starts with everyone, it starts with the exact same prologue that Carcosa has, but then you wake up in a cryo chamber in this ship, the Tatterdemalion, and things get funky from there. The campaign has a cool structure where you play a scenario 1, a scenario 2, and then these 3 scenarios, so scenarios 3, 4, and 5, you actually get to choose the order that you want to play them in. And the order that they play actually changes a little bit about the scenarios. Then scenarios 6, 7, and 8 all happen in order again. So it kind of has a cool campaign structure that provides a bit of replayability because these scenarios all change a little bit when you do them. The mechanics that are unique to this campaign, if we can just quickly look at this book. I guess one thing as well, it is an 8 scenario. It's a full campaign. And before I dive in any further, let me just say, glowing recommendation. I think this is the best custom campaign I've played. It does have a few things that I will get to, where if you're not really a big fan of puzzles, like it's probably, some of the scenarios are going to kind of be a bit lacking for you. But the theme, the story, is great from beginning to end, and while none of the scenarios particularly blew me away, like changed, like when I played Unspeakable Oath for the first time, I was like, oh my god, this game. None of them are particularly like mind-blowing. They're all very solid scenarios, and I had a good time with them. The scan is a mechanic that it's kind of like explore, but not really, because you're not really scanning for locations. You're scanning for things at a location. And it's a cool mechanic that's used in a variety of clever ways throughout the campaign. Memories are another thing, another mechanic that's unique to this. And basically, as you discover more about your past, they're kind of like the flashbacks in Innsmouth, but they can punish you. And they also are a resource later in the campaign. So getting them is both good and bad. I think here, and Impending Doom's another thing, you'll see it on this, that matters for the 3 scenarios you can do in this order, and I think it has aspects later on. I could be wrong, but I know for sure it's used in these guys a lot. It's kind of like the big counter for that. So, that's my spoiler-free review. I wanted to dive in and actually do the heavy spoilers. So we're going to be going into the actual detail of this, and we're going to get this here. We're going to look at it scenario by scenario, and I'm going to talk about them. So, spoilers are beginning here, and let's do the Tatterdemalion. Let it load in. So in this scenario, you wake up in the cryosleep quarters, and then you realize pretty quickly that the ship is not in a good place. So, cryosleep chambers, as a resign, nice easy start. 2 shroud. One thing that's really good about this campaign is I think the balance is really nice. I think like in terms of the numbers on everything is pretty good. There's some custom campaigns where that kind of isn't that good. However, I think Dark Matter has taken that time to really ensure that the numbers are good for the difficulty level, for the base difficulty level, because these numbers should be pretty standard, right? It's the Mythos bag on the difficulty you're playing of and the card is what should make it difficult, right? We don't need to see 5 shroud locations to make the game harder, because the design of it, I mean, like, you do. You do sometimes need 5 shroud locations to make certain things harder, but you'll actually find in the game, the official releases, they don't really do the numbers against the players that much, if at all. So, you explore the map, and as you get through, you realize that your first goal is to go to the engine room and spend 4 clues, or 2-player clues. This is important because if this agenda advances, the ship will explode and everyone will die. So you're kind of forced to rush your way into the engine room, and as you do, you find that the ship is empty. There's been a massacre. Corpses mutilated and mangled, scrawled on the floor in blood and gore, and the words "No Hope." After you enter the cargo hold, test bring 2. If you fail, take 1 horror, so a green character's nightmare. But then at the end of turn, if you're at the engine room and do not take radiation tablets, take 1 damage. So, like, the designer does a great thing here. First off, balancing the horror and the damage from these 2 locations, and then also like puts that urgency, punishes you for that urgency, which is really cool. Really cool design, and I really like the opening part of this. Let's take a brief stop at the scan deck. So the scan deck, as you can see, when you scan a location, which you can't do until you turn on the thing, I believe. Yes. So as soon as you get through this, the first little bit, the next objective is figure out how to repair or disable the insane cybernetic AI. You'll be instructed when to advance. Then if there are no clues on your current location, you can scan. So scanning is pretty simple. How it just works is that if you're on a location that you can scan, you discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until you can find the location that matches it, and then you draw and resolve that card. This is a robot. Hello, I'm LRO2 Holly. This is how you discover the majority of the items and victory in the game. And there is a ton of cool stuff that when you're first time through, especially the story it tells, like it builds there's a ventilation shaft that you can find, which allows you to progress between these 2 locations. Like you don't need to go through the escape pod bay. And there's a lot of interesting paths that the story can take, and that like the story of your gameplay can take depending on the order in which you draw these cards. The cyber virus, it's a little bit spooky. So, I believe I'm trying to find this guy. All right. Another thing that's really clever about this scenario, I think this scenario is just a really good opening scenario. I think it's just very strong. And there's a lot of clever things the designer does to teach you about what to expect from their campaign. So I think Axolotl is a very clever designer, and they use their design prowess early on to teach the player what to expect from this campaign. The fact that there are tricks built into the design, and that sometimes you need to look at a scenario a bit differently than you normally would. So this guy right here, he's huge. right? You draw this enemy and you're like, this is scenario 1. This guy has 5 attack and 3 health per player. He is Hunter. And while moving or engaging, he ignores investigators without an AI encounter card in their threat area. He's a big boy, but he's worth victory. One thing that you're probably going to do as you get through here, you're going to probably check out this area because you cannot enter the ship's bridge from the mess hall. So you're going to try to figure out, how can I do this? So very likely from here, you're going to jump up into the escape pod bay. And when you do, look at this. After you succeed at evading an enemy at this location, defeat that enemy. Group limit 3 times per game. This guy only has 2 foot. So already right here, the designer is teaching you, hey, look for other solutions to defeat enemies. I think this is a great opening opening scenario for the campaign, and I think it sets the mood up brilliantly. Going through the encounter deck, the only thing I'll note about this scenario in specific is that it is pretty enemy light. As you can see, the starting encounter deck for the flavor doesn't have any enemies in it. So as your goon, sometimes you're not going to be doing much. As you can see, there's one. Are there any of these ones? Let's check out. I think artificial intelligence. It adds some enemies as it flips. So there will be things, yeah, more enemies are added in here. And then the enemies are also, these guys, they're easy to kill, easy enemies to kill. So like enemies get it in, but as you can see, there's not many. There's actually only 3 enemies, not including the ones in the explore deck and the other stuff. So some parts of it is going to be a little bit slower for the goon, and that is okay. I think it makes up for the fact that this scenario is kind of cool and flavorful. And there's a 1 shroud location. The infirmary, you can scan and look for medical supplies, right? Like there's things that the goon can do, but I think the blind playthrough, the goon might not have as much fun in this one. Of course, people will say, but I make my goon to get clues. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I don't. I like to build pretty focused things. Last thing I want to talk about here is some of the encounter cards. I think overall the encounter cards for this one are pretty well balanced for this. There's these ones over here, the hidden cards that you add it to the victory display, and it's bad if they are in the victory display at the end, are very neat. Sometimes you can draw the wrong one, and then that kind of just sucks. But I think it makes up. I think it's okay. Adding the extra tokens, which is what it does, is ultimately not the end of the world. But as you can see, they have some. There's some cool stuff here with memories as well. Test Brain X, where X is your memories. If you fail, search the encounter deck for the topmost hidden card and draw it. So actually a pretty minor effect. But early on, this is going to be a low test, and you'll be able to get through it no problem. And then I think it's a very well-made treachery deck. I have no further other thoughts on that one right now. I think this is just a very good opening scenario, and I think it is a great time. Now let's see what happens if I try to recall this. All right, we got most of it. I mean, I'm just going to delete it because I don't really need this stuff anymore. All right, let's go on to the next scenario, Electric Nightmare. To me, this scenario is fine. This is the first. I think it's clever. I'm going to say that. I think it's very clever. So with this one, you are on the school grounds, and you basically just start here. But then when you open the door, and you basically crack the code, 3 undefined room setups. Ooh, look at that. Nice and simple. Boom, place. So once you get in, you then get this. This is your map, just working with this. And you have to, at the end of the round, if the configuration of the school location corresponds to the schematic, you advance. So you need like the yellow circle up here, red square up there. Look at that. I've just randomly drawn there. It's actually very well laid out, and the design concept of it is very elegant. Like it feels very elegant in the setup, and like making sure your puzzle is very doable. However, I think the flavor of it, while I get the flavor, right? Like, we are in a simulation. We are trying to move things around, get everything in the right order, and then when all the pieces slide into place, the light turns green and it's like, you're a go, explore the school. Or, as you say, we unlock some children and we have to save them from a certain special someone, which I will get to. However, something like this takes me personally out of the game, because I feel like it's less I am playing Arkham Horror and more that I am playing a puzzle game, right? Like, it becomes that these are pieces that I have to play with as opposed to a location in the game. So I can understand why some people would really like that. I personally don't. However, that doesn't mean it's bad. I think this scenario is still pretty good. There is a lot of cool stuff from it, and honestly, my first time through it was really hard, but then my second time through, I absolutely crushed. It becomes a lot easier once you kind of like understand what you need to do. Like, you can really put things in the right place. When you get things in the right place, you get a bunch of children, and then those children go on locations, and you need to, I don't know the best way of summing it up without reading everything, but you have to save the children. So if the boogeyman is at the location above or below David's location, you can parlay test fist 2. If you succeed, flip him over and resolve the text. And the boogeyman is this scary clown who's going to be moving around the board. So you can spend clues to just switch to adjacent locations with each other. So that's how you can set the puzzle up to get the boogeyman in the right spot. Let's talk about the boogeyman. Flavor for it really cool. Really neat, really fitting, very horror-y, classic trope, right? Scary clown. With just a combination of the many children's greatest fears. He has needles for fingers, right? Like, he's just spooky city. I also like the design on the card, how the clown is breaking the box, which gives you that feeling that something is wrong here. I think that's all very clever. However, it's a thing I hate hate's the wrong word. A thing I dislike is monsters that you can't defeat, or in this case, even evade, right? You just have to take horror if you are connected to them. There might be a way to avoid that. I don't know. Honestly, I don't recall, because like, you're just kind of like taught to stay away from him. However, I think it's a pet peeve of mine I have with design, and that even works for things in Arkham Horror card game proper, right? I also don't like it when enemies that come back a lot, when like there's just monsters that you fight over and over again. I'm kind of like, okay, give me something new. However, this one actually is pretty simple. It's pretty cool, and I think it's a fine second scenario. It's not one that I look forward to playing. Like, a lot of these ones I actually really like. I really like these ones. These ones are really good. But this one, and the first scenario is really good, but this one I'm like, yeah, I'll play it. But I think it's not, for me, one of my favorites. Saving the kids feels good, and you want to save all 4 because you get a really good item if you do. And it actually is pretty easy to get through, too. Once you know how to grok it and play it, the scenario is not too bad. Let's just quickly look. I'm just going to look through the Mythos deck, see if there's anything that I want to talk about. I mean, apart from the fact that Axolotl found awesome art for this. Early on, this foot 6 test is going to seem pretty scary, but this becomes much more easier to manage when you get there. And honestly, just the lose 2 resources is pretty soft. This character is kind of cool. When you would move between locations, it switches the locations. You can use them to your advantage, which I think is really clever. And once again, I think goes to Axolotl's great design philosophy of teaching the players and telling the players that sometimes you can solve issues without having to do it the normal way. Oh yeah, I think this card when I first played, yeah, I drew this guy. I think it was this guy. Choose and draw one of the discards. So discard cards on the top of the encounter deck until 2 virtual encounter cards are discarded. Choose and draw one of the discarded virtual encounter cards. If it is a treachery, resolve its revelation effect in additional time. If it's an enemy, place this card under it as a swarm. I think I got this guy. which gave us 10 health. An enemy at 10 health and attacking for 2 damage and 4 horror. And then I had another choice, which I don't remember what it was, but I just remember I was in a really rock and a hard place, and I didn't enjoy the first time. This one is really just luck. Sometimes you have encounter cards that just are bad, and like you get it and you're like, this is the worst draw I could have had just by random chance. And sometimes that's gonna suck. And that's just the reality of the situation. Okay. We are now, I don't want this video to be too long, but we're here. So these next ones I think are really cool. These are the ones that you can choose in the order you play. I've played Strange Moons first each time, mostly because I liked this one a lot. This is probably one of my favorites in the campaign, I think, just because it's really simple and elegant, and it has a very nice setup that really, it's a cool mission, right? So you get there and like, oh my god, look, it's a little alien. Just kidding, it's a Mego scientist. Then you can use him to lock these, there's brain cards. Attach each set aside brain card. And then what you got to do is you put brain cards on locations, and then you can scan. You scan this, and then you add this location symbol and that card, and you put it on this. Like, this isn't the right one, but it gives you, like, it's like a simulation machine, and it's really cool. And it tells a story in a cool way as you're exploring this. So you're really just kind of exploring this map, but it's constantly changing depending on what this is. Cool scenario. And then later on, things go to crap. And you don't belong here. Things go to crap, and a bunch of Byakis come and start attacking the colony, and you have to try to protect the Migos from it. Cool scenario. Really cool. I don't have much to say about it other than it's sick. I believe it also has a boss battle. Yeah, a boss shows up, which is cool. The last time I played this one, I had Janae Beauregard, and she absolutely breaks this scenario wide open. So I feel like I didn't get the full experience on that one, but it was still, I really like this scenario. If I had to point to one and say it's my favorite on this campaign, it probably would be Strange Moons. Fantastic scenario, really fun. I like the setup. I like how it's not really aliens. Instead, it is Migos. All right, we're going to talk about Lost Quantum next. So this one changes apparently a lot depending on the order you play it, but I have played it the same way both times. Just by the order in which it happened, I did not get the full experience. So I'm going to talk about the other side of it, which, oh, this seems new. I don't think this is how I'd set up for me. But basically this one, the flavor of it is really cool. So you get to this planet. I think it's, I don't know where it is off the top of my head. The lore will tell you. But basically there's like a quantum field unstable, and like things are zapping in and out of reality. So the way I played it, like locations would zap in and out because by the time we got there, it was particularly unstable. And then we had to like try to find our way and get through it, try to save somebody, try to save the field. And it just feels really cool. It feels like a good story experience as you're going through it. And then it also does something really clever, where there are only 3 Agenda 1s, and they all have 3 Doom, and they just, like, keep going. So, for example, if there's another, they all say this, if there's another agenda below this one, set this agenda aside out of play. Otherwise, add 1 tally mark under impending doom in your campaign log, and shuffle this agenda with each set aside agenda to form a new agenda deck. So the longer you take, the worse it's going to be for everyone else. So yeah, I think this is the extended version. So if there are 8 Elbrus locations in play and each location has a resource token on it, we may advance. And then this other one is you just have to get out. You need to get out of here as soon as you can before it's lost in the quantum realm. So I am excited to play this campaign again, and I guarantee you I will play this campaign again. As I said earlier, I think this is a very, very, very strong custom campaign, and I am curious to see how it plays with repeated playthroughs. I think it deserves the same respect that a published campaign does. I do stand by something I say a lot on our Discord channel, which is that custom campaigns, they'll never, they to me, they just never feel like a published one. Just because a lot of the times in custom campaigns, the designers are really creative, but then sometimes their designs become a bit too custom is the word for it, I think. And we see that in some places on here in this campaign. However, I do think that this is still a very, 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 very good campaign, and I highly recommend it. All right. But yeah, I'm curious to see how the pace changes on the full version of this. All right, Lost Quantum, get out of here. In the Shadow of Earth. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's okay, we're fine. Oh, no, my act deck's dead. Oh, no. There it is. All right. So this one's kind of cool. This one, look at it. It's actually a spaceship. I love this. I love this. And honestly, the sad part is, though, it doesn't look as good without these connectors. You're like, oh, now it's nothing. The connectors really seal the deal there. So, in this scenario, it's kind of like The Thing. So the first time I played this this campaign on the channel, it saw a big change from that. It's not as it is in its final version. So in this one now, how it works is that there are civilians on this ship, and there's a chance that one of them, even Mudbug, could be infected by an alien entity that is a huge risk. And I believe the alien entity is somewhere. He's probably in here. The entity, boom. So the entity is a big boy. But how it works is that you are trying to clear out one of these with evidence. You're trying to clear out who is not infected, and then you want to get those infected people back on your ship. So it's kind of like a search and rescue, where you don't know if you are able to, if you should rescue certain people. So your goal is to find the people, and then also find evidence that they are okay. Because there's a chance that one, none, or some could be infected by this entity. I think the flavor and theme of this this scenario is really cool, and it has it does my thing the thing that I think is just so that I think is just so clever with this campaign, which is Axolotl did a fantastic job taking the scan mechanic and exploring it in a ton of different ways. Really cool, really smart, and it feels different each time. I think this is a good scenario, and I think the new version is much better than the first version I played. And I'm sure Axolotl would agree, otherwise this change would not have happened. So going back to this, I do think that these three scenarios are the highlight of the campaign. To me, this is the part where the most replayability lives in the campaign. So like, for example, Starfall right here, I'm going to get to this more, and I'm going to repeat it when I get there. Starfall is a great scenario, and the first time you play Starfall, it's probably going to be the best scenario you play. It's really good the first time. Unfortunately, that excitement did not carry over to the second playthrough I did, and I think these three are going to be great in no matter what you play. They are, to me, the highlight of this campaign. All right, let's go to the machine in yellow. This one's going to look mighty familiar. All right, well, everything's breaking, so let's just hope it's going to be okay. Hey, wait a minute. This is the theater from Carcosa. Oh my god, curtain call? Oh my god, is that Big Butt Baby? Oh my god. So in this one, yes, you're actually just playing the map and all of the cards. All of the cards from Curtain Call. And it follows like the exact same structure too, if I believe. And after reveal backstage, you just get to do this. Yeah, like it's pretty much just the same, which is kind of just really cool. However, see, it also even actually runs the delusions. It's really cool. It's just a very clever change of pace because you're not expecting it at this point, but you just are basically playing the map from Curtain Call. However, you eventually do learn that there is your other self here that you must defeat. So, cannot be disengaged but can be exhausted. Your other self's fight, health, evade, and evade values are equal to the engaged investigator's base strength, fist, health, and foot values. When you deal damage to the other self, if it is ready, and the engaged investigator also takes that amount of damage, you may spend one clue to cancel that damage. So each investigator is going to have one of these locked on them, and then they need to beat it. They need to defeat that. It provides an interesting thing where just punching them directly hurts you, because you're punching your own self. You stop hitting yourself, etc., etc. So it provides an interesting struggle that you need to solve, an interesting puzzle that you need to figure out. There are tons of ways to do it, and then depending on how good you did, I believe on the second scenario, either the Royal Emissary shows up or the Boogeyman shows up again. My points on the Boogeyman still stand. I wish he wasn't part of this scenario, but I understand the reason why he is, and I imagine a lot of players will enjoy that. For me, though, I wasn't a big fan of the Boogeyman coming up. I think even as well, the Stranger, like, after the Stranger is defeated, is the Stranger just even the... I don't know who the Stranger is. It might just be the Man in the Pallid Mask again. But it is a cool scenario. I think I enjoyed it more on my second playthrough more than I did my first. But I do think that this is a really cool scenario and an interesting stopping point before it gets into the final two scenarios. Fragment of Carcosa. So for me personally, this was a really weird one where I actually enjoyed the first version more than the second one. This is not me saying that the second one is bad, because I think the updated version is still good. But one thing to be aware of, if you do not like puzzles, this scenario is going to suck for you. There's a great little thing here in the achievements and ultimatums. In the Fragment of Carcosa, my brain is dying. Why would you do this, Axolotl? I am so sorry. That's the only FAQ there. Sorry, just blowing out a candle. So, what does this mean? So, you know those puzzles when you flip a switch and then every adjacent switch to that turns on? So you turn a switch on, the adjacent ones turn off, etc., etc. That's how these ones work. So, as a lightning bolt, if you're at a cave or a Carcosa location, you can spend player clues as a group to flip your location and all connecting locations to their other side. So, if I wanted to flip this one over, because, for example, after you enter Bottomless Pit, move to any other non-surface location, take 3 direct damage, and lose all remaining actions, you might want to flip that, but then that flips all of these. And then this one is, if there are no Carcosa locations in play, each undefeated investigator at this location read the set-aside Lost Expedition. You cannot enter Impassable Ravine from connecting locations. So to do that, you need to flip this, which flips these ones back. And you have that damn switch puzzle that's just a nightmare to spend. For example, this one, if there are 6 Carcosa locations in play, so that means you need all of these flipped to be Carcosa. There are some things you can do. I don't remember where exactly what they were. However, this is another scenario where, like the Electric Nightmare, To me, it feels less like I'm playing Arkham and more like I'm playing a puzzle with Arkham pieces, which to some people I think will be a great time. For me, though, this one is, I don't enjoy this scenario too much, but I can definitely see how people would. The flavor for this one's really cool because like there's like no direct enemies. All of the enemies are things like sophistic spires. I think there's like a tattered curtain that just comes and like goes over somebody. Yellow mists. I think this part is so freaking cool. This stuff over here. Like the enemies being just remnants of Carcosa is so cool. However, the main mechanic of it doesn't work for me, but I still think it's a fine scenario. I still think the pros overweigh the cons for this one for me. There's a few scary monsters, the Beast of Aldebaran, and then there are a bunch of cool story assets, expedition things you can read depending on the flipping these locations, right? If this location is the only Carcosa location in play, read the set aside for you alone story card, right? So I think overall, while this scenario isn't my favorite, I can see why people can like it, especially if you like puzzles. Oh my god, if you like those kind of switch puzzles, oh boy, buckle up, you're going to have a great time. We're on to Starfall. The final scenario. So one thing I remember, if I remember correctly, when I was playing this for the first time, Axolotl came into my Twitch chat and was chatting with me a bit about it. And they mentioned that with Starfall, they liked the idea of having a final campaign not be a traditional boss fight, unless you get the ultimate secret cupcake surprise ending, right? So what they did is they kind of just have it like, this is like the climax of all the stories you've been told so far as you try to save the world from, I believe it's just entropy. I think it's on one of these. No, never mind. But basically the whole theory is that Haster is, and like I think it's Tassilda, she's over here somewhere. Tassilda. It's like the idea that it's just entropy, which I think is really cool, and super awesome. I think like once again, I think the story in this one is really standout. But basically how it works is you're trying to save 3 civilizations from going to die. One of them is Yuggoth, New Brooklyn, and Hope. So what's cool is that these are all kind of linked to the 3 middle scenarios here. So it is kind of neat where like this right here is going back to not only is my favorite part, but it's like the most important part of the campaign, because how you did determines the steps you need to take to save people. If you did good, you only need to do 1 step. If you did bad, you need to do 2 steps. As I said earlier, this is probably one of the best scenarios you're going to play your first time through. Maybe not everyone else is like me, where the second time through isn't as exciting. However, the first time, this is like probably one of my favorite scenarios on a first playthrough. It just felt like a sprawling epic of a story, and I just thought that was like so sick. You also got to fight a crab, a giant crab, which is kind of awesome. So how this one, the kind of whole thing is there's a lot of scanning. So, and then you're going to like, you scan and search. So for example, you're scanning on Hope, right? So you're digging, I think you just scan on Hope, right? So then you find, yeah, Martian crab, any Mars location, right? Here's the crab. And then the goal is to like defeat the crab. But like there's also then locations that come into play on it, right? And basically you're doing that all over the place. And what I think makes this so good on the first playthrough is the fact that you really don't know what's in the scanning deck. However, that surprise is kind of gone on the second time, and then when you're scanning and you don't hit the things you want to hit, it just becomes a little bit like the magic is gone. The storytelling surprise is gone, and that's a little bit unfortunate. It is It is kind of, I think like the scenario is still overall a strong scenario, but just I've seen a lot of people say that this one's the best, and I agree. It's so good your first time through. So enjoy it. Honestly, if you're playing this and you want to play this, get out of here. Don't watch this video anymore because it ain't worth it. It just you don't want to get spoiled. It ain't worth hearing me talk about this scenario anymore. Get out of here and go start playing Dark Matter. You're going to enjoy it. It's a good custom campaign. Some cool things that I really like here, as I say, this location, the sun. After you enter this location, you are immediately killed, which, number one, makes sense. And number two, it immediately makes your brain start thinking, how the heck do I scan this location? Because it's in the scanning deck, right? And it allows you to challenge the secret final boss, which is Tasilda, which I have done. I think I did it correctly. I might have done it incorrectly. I don't remember. But there's a lot of cool things to explore here. A lot of cool story beats. There's Earth. So Earth was taken over by the Ancient Ones. So now when you get into this location, you're immediately driven insane. But likewise, you can actually still scan it for, I think, the teardrop symbol, which is also on the sun, the pallid mask, which allows you to move to any revealed location. There's just a lot of cool stuff. Is there one more teardrop? No. There's just a lot of really cool stuff in this scenario, and I think it is a great story ender. Just be aware it's very long. I believe my first playthrough took me 2 hours, and I have no idea on my second playthrough. I think it's really enjoyable, and you're going to have a great freaking time. I'm not going to dive in and look at everything because this one is best experienced just by playing it, but I think it's a really good capper to a really good campaign. Man, I don't even know if this review was helpful to you, but I hope it was. Kind of just a summation of everything and giving my thoughts on them. I think Dark Matter is definitely worth your time, whether it be to play digitally or print it through the one of the maybe the Make Playing Cards links if they still exist. Axolotl did a fantastic job, and they should be incredibly proud of what they created here because it's the best custom campaign I played in terms of just presentation, balance, and creativity. It's really freaking good. The writing is also really nice throughout all of this, which is like an aspect people just don't think about. But like there's a lot that goes into making these, and Axolotl did a fantastic job. You should play Dark Matter. It's definitely worth your time. And yeah, I think we're going to end this one here. Hopefully this helped. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments because I will respond to them. I respond to all of the comments that have questions that I can answer. And I might have missed more because this is kind of just like a rambling review going through the whole campaign. So I don't really know exactly if I covered everything or if I'll have more thoughts. And maybe after I do another playthrough, I'll do another review. But after 2 playthroughs of Dark Matter, I can just give it 2 thumbs up. Very strong campaign. Really fun. You should check it out. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully, yeah, good, there's no camera. I don't have a camera on right now. I haven't even showered yet. What are you talking about? If this was helpful, let me know. If you want to see me do reviews for other custom campaigns, I will get to them eventually. I just like to play a campaign twice before I even think about giving my thoughts and reviews on it, because a blind playthrough and a second playthrough really changes things. Thanks for watching, everybody. Huge thanks to our patrons. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.